Welcome back to Derek and Matt. What? No, I'm just kidding.
Matt, guys, back in the studio. Good to see you, my brother. How you doing how you doing on this? What is this, a Monday? No, Tuesday. Tuesday. We switched it up on everybody.
Forgot about Martin Luther King.
Oh, dang. How do you recover from that?
You burned me in the first podcast really bad. So.
Oh, did I now? Okay. Well, anyway.
I'm not saying that was revenge. That's not biblical. So.
I have no memory of such things, but the fact that you would keep that in your hearts, maybe we can.
It hurt. It was really good. You got me good.
All right.
The only difference is mine was at the very, very end where you buried me, and this one's in the beginning. So
if anybody watches, they'll hear it at the beginning, and then
yours, they have to watch the entire thing to get the get the juice.
Okay. All right, my brother. So we're 3 episodes in, third week in a row, building some consistency in this space.
Absolutely.
All right. You want to break it down? Where are we starting today?
Yeah, absolutely. We are going to get into fatherless generation statistics, which I thought were pretty alarming. Additionally, I got on the cast cultural appropriation. Should someone get mad for participating in someone else's culture if it's in a non-offensive way? Happiness, specifically. There was one that you sent me about the happiest country in the world and things that they don't do. But it was really interesting how I saw that there was an Instagram that said the Bible never commanded us to find our own happiness or to find happiness or to live happiness. So we'll discuss that. And then we have Canada's view on the U.S., a Canadian's view on the USA, how America, they feel that we racially segregate ourselves on our own compared, I guess, to their experience in Canada. And then we're getting into, you brought up 2 topics, church controversy. And then we have one more subject as well coming for y'all. So, want to start off with fatherless statistics. Give me 1 second here.
While you're doing that, I'll do a brief little commercial here. I did a stream this past week, and so whenever I'm like feeling emotion, I'm like, oh, I think I have a lesson inside this emotion. I'm like, let me try to like capture both.
Go ahead with it.
And so then the message was about like sadness waiting for me on the other side of different achievements. So sometimes I thought like different achievements or accomplishments or milestones or life moments would make me almost immune to sadness. But no matter what milestone I've had up until this point, again, I'm 37 years old, different milestones along the way, books, house, car, marriage, wife, 9 years of marriage. This year's going to be 10, 20 years as a Christian. And you just think like any one of these milestones, you finish the Bible, you baptize somebody, you do any one of these things, and you think, oh yeah, like this is what a fulfilling, wholesome, powerful, beautiful life is. And maybe there won't be sadness on the other side of this. You know what I'm saying? I'll be immune on the other side. But anyway, I forgot to tweak the audio. So pretty much I did this whole stream and got nothing. So it was me on stream, but with no audio, with some tears. And then so that message was lost.
You're crying with no audio of why?
Yeah.
It was that called self-interpretation podcasting? Or they do a dance or whatever?
Is that what it is? The interpretive dancing?
We just made it up right now.
What was funny was somebody in the comment did say she said for me to post it anyway. I had posted it, but I deleted it. But it was still over on Twitch. But I was like, she was like, I'll post it anyway. I'm good at lip reading or whatever. And I was like, I should have just linked it to Twitch, which I think Twitch deletes it after a week or so. So it's still there for the next couple of days.
Okay. Did you like tag anything in it for like to let people know, at least a warning? Hey, there's no audio. There's no words.
On Twitch, it's gonna delete anyway. So I was like, well. So they'll see no audio. Grown man is crying for no reason. Well, no discernible reason, at least.
I want to see this. Actually, this is gonna be great. Sorry, the last subject is actually gonna be the second subject. Was to be comedy and entertainment for Christians, which I'm ready to feel what's the word when you feel like you need to repent?
Convicted?
Convicted. Yeah, I'm kind of scared. We might just skip that one. No, I'm just kidding.
Mm.
All right, but yeah, first one, getting into fatherless generation statistics. So I found it amazing in a bad way how we are number one country in the entire world for fatherless, or most single parent homes in the entire world. So the world average 7%. We're 3 times higher that at no about yeah, that's weird that didn't math doesn't make sense, but a little over 3 times at 24%.
Yeah.
Not something you want to be number one in for sure. Here's some statistics by fatherless homes, right? So 80% of single parent homes are led by single mothers, aka reason why majority of it's like fatherless generational statistics. 23% of children in U.S. families' homes are being raised by one parent. So that's literally 1 in every 4 person for a child you see. It's pretty high. So that's statistics 23. The USA percent 3 times higher, which I went over. Even in both parent homes, kids are speaking on average to their father about 30 minutes a week.
Whew.
A week on average. Compare that to the video games, TV, and internet they're consuming on average of 44 hours they're getting with those things compared to 30 minutes
44 hours
they get with their father.
compared
Yeah.
to 30 minutes a week with their fathers.
Yeah, huge. In a bad way. 90% of all children's homelessness and runaway children, 63% of teen suicides, and 85% of teens with behavioral disorders all come from fatherless homes. Fatherless homes has a direct link to early teen pregnancy and sexual activity. 70% of teenage pregnancy comes from women in fatherless homes. Fatherless homes leave kids 20 times likely to be incarcerated and 11 times more likely to exhibit violent behavior. Father and mother raising their kid together. This I thought was really interesting, and I feel really dumb because I wasn't able to like understand what he was saying. So
Yeah.
I'm sure other people too. I'll break it down a little easier than what I read. It's from Patrick McDavid. But father and mother raising their kid together has the same statistic as just the father raising the kid by himself. So essentially, if you're not catching that, if having 2 parents, father and a mother, versus just the father, the statistic doesn't change at all for how likely a child will be incarcerated. Professor recently came out with a study on, quote unquote, by Patrick McDavid. The problem is the single mother without the father in the picture that can sit there and discipline the kid, give them hope, values, and principles. His question to everyone was, why are we 3 times the world statistic? What about America? What about the USA? What about our culture and our society has created this environment?
Dang, deep waters, my brother, deep waters. So, I mean, there's like conspiracy stuff built into this.
For sure,
There's, I mean, there's naturally there's a lot of spirituality components. I think, I mean, from a Bible worldview, I think I often think about like, well, what passages are related to this concept, and are we living those passages? Are we helping other people to live those passages? What was your first response in reading all that?
Well, one thing I think is a little less of a conspiracy, because I know we can go super down the conspiracy theory side, is the court system. So I believe I was reading on, I think it was like Utah national statistics. On average, women get 65% of win 65% of child custody cases.
Yeah.
Versus men 35%. I don't think it's a secret. Even just growing up here in the stories of what dramatic situation would need to happen for a man to win custody over the woman. I definitely think that's changing within the court system. I don't know if it's on an even playing field, 50-50 per se as of now. Well, I guess the statistics is not. These statistics were as of 2018. The national average 65% custody. So I think one is from what I heard is that the having the court cases and giving the money to the mothers, as far as what am I thinking of, child, with usually the father owes this. What am I? You know what I'm talking about?
Child support.
Child support. Thank you.
Yeah.
Jeez. Yeah, the child support and going and paying the lawyers. Like it's a huge financial intake for them not to fix the problem, right? It's like lawyers are making a lot of money off of families' misery and their downfall. Court systems even as well. So there's little desire to want to fix that problem when you have people, in high places lobbying against trying to do the things that would fix that issue, like laws that would be more in favor of two-child homes. I heard another statistic too, like talking about giving the incentives that, like, hey, if you're below a certain poverty line, like you're not able to really get the money unless the dad wasn't there.
Yeah.
Back in the day. So in a way, I almost feel like it's systematically can be. There's ways that motivate it to be systematically in our culture.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think about. So I've heard some of the statistics, and hey, is there a problematic with the system, the way the court system or the court system is built, the way the laws are established, and like the lack of equity. I think about the connection, and maybe it's all the same connection, which is like really hearing the statistic about the fathers who are spending 30 minutes a week.
That's crazy.
Like, even if they were out of the household, the marriage didn't work out and it was separate. Like, I still processing 30 minutes a week sounds like crazy. Like, yeah, there's 168 hours in a week. 30 minutes is next to nothing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, but I think I could hear statistics. They could be discouraging for sure. But I think I will often go to, what am I doing with the men around me to help this problem go away, or even am I doing anything in my day to day where it's creating more of the problem? Like, am I, like, what kind of conversations am I having with the men in my circle, the people who either are fathers or who will be fathers? What conversations am I having with them to inspire, motivate, challenge, help, spur them to a next level of living?
Yeah.
So there's a passage in the book of Hebrews chapter 10, and it tells us to consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds. And one of the primary good deeds, as we talk about this, like being a father, being a good father, I think that's a good deed. So if you think about that passage, that we're supposed to consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds. It's a thought process. It's a premeditated component of, how can I spur other fathers on toward the deed of being there for his children, the deed of showing up to serve, of showing up to support, of showing up to cheer their children on, whether it's sports. Again, I relate to the statistic as far as like that number, 30 minutes a week, probably was pretty accurate as far as my own upbringing. I thought it through as far as the number of basketball games my dad went to. Probably one game across the 17 years he was alive while I was alive. Like, I played hundreds of games. So anyway, all that to say, I think I could hear statistics and I could hear systems like built in, which sometimes I feel like, I may not be able to affect a system. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But I do affect men in my circle, and what kind of conversations am I having with them? Am I holding them accountable to excellence, to include how they show up for their family?
What I liked is that you immediately went, okay, here's the problem. What can I do, and what can other people do to fix it? Or, try to solve this issue, even if it's at a local term. People think that, that's really not going to make a difference. Well, yeah, everyone is trying to make, a difference locally, and let's be honest, you probably affect more than just one person. That can sustain real change. I often think that people they underestimate the power that they have.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I mean, I remember like complimented someone, and oftentimes like I took the encouragement circle. If anyone's familiar with what encouragement circle is, I think it's mainly a church thing, but not sure. But mainly where it's you have one person and everyone goes around the room in a circle and says all the things that they love about them, like everything they can think of that they really appreciate that about that person. Then that's what it's there for. It's like, hey, to encourage that person. I've done something like that with like, not even necessarily friends, like acquaintances, that I it sounds funny to say, but forced to see every day due to work or some kind of situation like that.
Yeah.
And like they break down crying, and like, I don't even feel like I really went in. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It was like, man, like really easy, simple compliment really, really affected that person. But that's on the softer side. But if you evaluate the actions that you've done and things that you've said to people, you've changed lives. Like I see bad and good that I've done in other people's lives. There's a girlfriend that I had in high school. Like I think her whole life would be completely different if I would have stepped up in certain ways and defended her in certain situations. I was just too immature and didn't understand when I was a freshman year in high school. I fully believe that her life would have been 100% and completely different, and that's on me, right? Like I live with that. But then there's times where I've said things to people to encourage them not to do something, or like, hey, like you have all this potential. This is all the things that I see in you, and hey, you should navigate life, believe yourself like this. And like now they own business on their own, and they probably statistically, especially, shouldn't be there based on criminal record, history, past, all these kinds of things. But we were really in a down time. Like I was there to be able to give them advice or whatever.
Yeah.
Now that person has a family now. Like, and that person now teaching his kids and being an example to him, and has, that person may have not made that decisions if I wasn't there to encourage them and be there in that perspective. So I think really, even if you're only affecting like your local people around you, it may only be like 3-4 people. Like you gotta understand, like those people affect other people as well, and it continues to spread.
Yes, sir.
So I love that you thought of a solution where I just read a bunch of problems.
Well, let's ask Jamie to pull something up for us real quick. Some this movie actually. Okay. And I want to tie it into what I want to say. So maybe we can look over here at the screen and we can.
While you're doing that, I can talk about. I think another thing that makes it a systemic problem in the U.S. is how women and men both feel like they have to work, even when they. In 2-parent homes, like they have, and oftentimes they're sending their kids to babysitters, the public schools raising them, and both of them may not get that much time with their parents due to the hectic work schedule, and then coming home, and I know some parents that are pretty well off, like have nannies and stuff, and like they kind of raise their kids too, like So but I think the bigger issue, like more in the middle class, is like we both have to work so hard just to be able to like provide basic things, especially with recent inflation and like groceries and I feel like that us both being away from the house, other people are raising our kids for us instead of ourselves. I think that's something really can be dangerous to watch out for, and I think it's kind of built systemically within our culture as well.
Yeah,
I don't know what to do to fix that besides try to get a better job, right?
I often will think anecdotally, which that perspective is. I think of the situations that I've been in with the people around me, what I've seen with my own eyes, what I've touched with my own hands. And so I remember, as a 19, 20 to 20-year-old and talking to my younger brother who didn't really get into drinking, didn't really get into, drugs. And like, I was just kind of curious his perspective on like, why did he not get into any of that in his life? And again, this is, and what he shared with me he was just watching me as his older brother. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I wasn't doing that. So he was like, oh yeah, I'm not doing that either. Wow. And so that was just an interesting perspective because he had the same experience as far as our dad not being in our world, yet him not going down that drug path. And then us having conversation about it. and which was again. So the reason I paused for us to talk about the movie. So have you ever seen the movie Onward? It's a is it Disney? Um, Disney. It's animated for sure. I guess.
Oh, well, if it's animated, it's for sure Disney or Pixar, which Disney owns.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, I think it was for sure Pixar. Which there you go. So, you familiar with the movie? The premise?
I have probably watched the least Disney movies out of any American alive.
Okay. All right. So I'll give you the premise, and I'll also spoil it for you if you're okay with that.
Oh, definitely.
All right. So spoiler alerts. All right. So Onward. So in the movie, their dad has died, but then they find out that they could cast a spell and like spend one day with them, like, but they have to like complete a series of objectives to finish the spell so that they can have spend one more day with their dad. Which so like again, one, the dad being dead is like heartbreaking already, right? Just from the jump. But two,
Why are you smiling?
because it
so heartbreaking. Smiling here, dude.
I do smile at really sad things. I'm like, oh, like this is deep water. Okay, so one, dad's dead. That's problematic. But how dark the movie gets, and I don't even think I've read reviews about it, is that they're trying to complete these objectives so they can spend the day with their dad. But as the day goes on, again, the tension in the movie was that they weren't able to like as the day so what is it? So the days they're there for the full 24 hours, but there's some tension that stops them from being able to spend the full day with them. So they have to complete more objectives. So they complete more objectives, but you realize that the time is ticking. Like 3 hours is gone, 4 hours is gone, and 10 hours is gone, 12 hours, 16 hours is gone, and then 23 hours is gone. They still haven't. These two brothers are trying to make this happen so they could spend time with their dad. And then, so there's part of the reason I'm laughing is like I could feel the emotion inside of me right now.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So in the so crazy, like a Disney movie would do this to somebody. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay. So toward the end of the movie, they're trying to get like the last. Can I get 10 seconds or whatever, a minute with my dad? And they finish defeating whatever obstacle they had. And then the younger brother, he realizes he's like, all these things that I wanted, like for my dad, right? It was this like adventure, together. It's like this bond and connection and overcome challenges and obstacles. And the younger brother realizes that everything he wanted in his dad, he got from his bigger brother, So I say that because my brother's the one that told me about the movie, and like
he compared it to
yeah. So him like giving that to me was like, oh, like that movie, that moment, that message, was really deep. Like we both probably would have preferred dad to be around, but like the power of somebody, as to your point that you were making about the people you influence right around you. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I didn't, in the moment, I don't think I realized I was accidentally, incidentally, and even imperfectly fulfilling that need for my brother without even realizing it. You know what I'm saying? Like, just like a crazy thought. So anyway, got all teary eyed over here.
Before a Christian, what age did you become a Christian?
At 17.
So you were doing that stuff at like 16, 15?
Like, so stuff, right, would be
smoking, drinking, and being with girls.
Drinking, girls, but still, so spending time playing basketball or playing video games was pretty consistent or whatever. Like that time we had, but I processed it as like quality time as much as it was. Yeah, I have this hobby. My brother also has this hobby, and you spend a lot of time doing this. You know what I'm saying?
How old was he when you're 15, 16?
So he was 2 years younger than me. So
Okay. So did he know about the things that you were doing, like the smoking and the drinking and the other stuff beforehand?
I think he did. He knew about the lifestyle. I think. I mean, it wasn't. I mean, for me, it was again like drinking a couple of times, like in 8th grade, and I was like, this isn't for me. So I'm not stepping on this. Like, but it was really just more stuff with girls, like he knew about.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
So then, when you became a Christian, he really looked up to that at that point, or like, what did that look like?
Which I don't know. It was kind of interesting. I don't know if the Christian did anything for him. Like,
But your lifestyle, I guess, that you were living once you became one.
which was really like my as far as together, it was my senior year of high school, and then I left, and then I moved out. So then we didn't even like, there wasn't a lot of overlap, even like as far as like, like you're a Christian, you're this person now. It was more of not.
I guess what I'm trying to correlate is that you said your brother looked up to you because you didn't do X, Y, Z, and was that only at 17 when you became a Christian, or that was like because you kind of just said, hey, I drunk a couple times in 8th grade, and didn't really do it again, it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
So like, so you're saying even through 8th, 9th, 10th, before you became a Christian, you were not drinking, and he looked up to that way before you became a Christian.
Right. Actually, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's making more sense.
Yeah. So yeah, from a lifestyle perspective, yeah, it wasn't like to the point of what he was explaining why he didn't get into certain lifestyles. It was part of he didn't see that in me. So
yeah.
But even before I was a Christian, like that, some of that stuff just wasn't in my life.
Wow.
So yeah,
that's beautiful, man.
Yeah, man. I mean, over here, teary eyed on the first little topic.
He didn't even tell me that off camera. Like,
well, I think the funny thing about when you connect with people, you share that story, or you share the idea of the people you impact right around you.
That made you think.
And
of
then it made me think about the movie Onward. And even when I was pulling it up, I didn't even know if I would get emotional about it or whatever. You know what I'm saying? But
so you're saying you didn't do that for views?
So yeah,
all
right.
Authentic.
Like I didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it's very cherished and precious, powerful to think about my brother thinking about me like that. So
as you were talking about Onward, it made me think of the movie Click. Have you seen that one with San Antonio? Was it
yeah,
Adam Sandler?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
remind me of the premise.
I feel like it's kind of similar because, and it's kind of similar to what like both of us were saying combined together. So he works so much,
yeah,
and is so busy at this company and trying to make it successful and getting rich and supplying. You know, he thinks he's showing his love by like supplying gifts and this big house and nice things and stuff like that. But in reality, like the kids are getting older and they just live a life without him, and they just move on and like don't care too much for him because he hasn't been in their life really. Like all they really had was his money.
Yeah.
And then he realized he just worked his life away, and at the end, like nothing really to show for it. It was like, this movie's really funny. It's really cool. Okay, that's sad. Oh, damn! And then it just super drops off. Like is this any happiness in this? Like, but I think because of the remote, he got to rewind his life and do it over.
Yeah.
So, but it was like, oh my gosh, I don't know how people's favorite movie is not 7 Pounds, Pursuit of Happiness.
Yeah. Because it struggled the whole 99%.
The whole movie is just like it starts down and somehow just goes downer. Like it's just all negative, and then at the very end, yay, and then it's over. Like, I get no time to enjoy like the happiness. Like, you know, most movies are like up and down. Like, it's just wins and losses. It's just straight loss until the very end.
Right.
I can't stand that movie.
Well, even worse is like even in my Spanish learning journey, I like put a novella on or whatever, and the novella's like happening, and like the villain is like killing off like family members of the hero or the protagonist, killing off family members, like when that's such a big deal in life when you kill people off, and it's like you see. I remember like there's like 120 episode like novella or whatever, so it's like going like you're getting close to 114, 115. It's like
how many family members you got? You still killing them? This is my third cousin's uncle's brother.
What it kind of happens is not as much that angle, but it was more of like there's not enough episodes to get the revenge that the protagonist needs for this to be a big enough payoff. You know what I'm saying? There's not, but to that point about the pursuit of happiness. There's not enough. There's not enough like of a payoff. There's a major payoff in the movie, but there's not a major payoff, and that's interesting. I typically want a bigger payoff more often than just the end. So yeah.
Take notes, Hollywood. Move on to the second one.
Yeah. Well, I guess the only thing I was gonna say, maybe in contrast to you gave commentary saying, "Hey man, you had a solution." The thing about it is, where you familiar with the phrase multivariate?
For the lack of not trying to look stupid on this podcast, absolutely.
I mean, so you think about the word multi is like multiple, and then variate being variation. So the idea then
it's
is
literally
like
what it says.
Yeah. So when you make solutions one dimensional, that's sometimes when they call it problematic. When you're like, oh yeah, well just hold men accountable in your life. Yes, and so they talk about like this concept of asking you've heard of like 7 whys, where they talk about like the Washington Monument when they were trying to figure out why it was deteriorating, and they're like, oh well, that's easy because
salt from the ocean or something. The Washington. Never mind.
Yeah.
It's not even near the ocean. I immediately thought Statue of Liberty.
Okay, they were like, okay, yeah, well, it's because of the cleaning solution that they're putting on it. Okay, that's the problem. Okay, stop you doing the cleaning solution. Okay, but then the secondary problem is every night the birds come and use the restroom on the monument, and so they use the cleaning solution. So like, okay, so then if we get rid of the birds, then the problem will go away. And then they're going, okay, but the birds come to take care of the spiders or the bugs that be running around. So so then the cleaning solution wasn't the solution. The birds wasn't the solution. And then you take it to spiders. The spiders wasn't the solution. It was the lights. So like, anyway, and I'm giving you a more shortened version, but the whole concept is when you create one solution and you forget about asking about other things, like you mentioned, the court system and some of these other things to solve that are contributing to the problem that might get overlooked. It's why sometimes you think, yeah, let me be great to the men in my life. Let me encourage them and challenge them to excellence. And is there anything more I can do systemically to be able to help solve the problem? So anyway, I never want to make a thing be that simple, but that's the business mindset of thinking through a problem from that perspective as well.
Do you have another solution by the one besides the one you named?
Well, I mean, you started going down that line, which was like, okay, well, are the court system just? Okay, what's the answer to that? Are they not just? Okay, why are they not just? And you can just keep going down the line of keep asking why, whatever your situation is, to figure out what is it behind the scenes. You mentioned the lawyers are making a lot of money because of the problems in the families that are going to court. Okay, so then is there a solution to that? So you keep going down the line. Yes, let's encourage and challenge all men to be better fathers, to take responsibility, to be accountable, to show up, to be present, and
or act like they matter.
Right.
So they actually want to. Yeah.
To act that, to show value to the kids. But yeah. So anyway, I don't have a secondary solution, but the idea is you keep digging for that root cause. That's an expression, the root cause analysis.
All right, you ready for the next one?
Let's go.
All right. Oh, this is the one
Is this one gonna make me cry, or is this one gonna?
No, this one's gonna make me cry.
So
this one's comedy and entertainment for Christians. So I think I asked Derek. I want to take my girlfriend to a comedy show, and there's nothing Christian about him. He's definitely gonna be some profanity. Probably definitely gonna be talking about sex. Just I guess like an average comedian, like in the world or whatever. But I was like, hey, because for me, comedy is like one of the most important things in my life. I noticed like all my greatest friendships, because either I can laugh, have a good time with them. Usually through laughter, either they're pretty hilarious, we're hilarious together, or they at least think I'm hilarious. They laugh at my jokes. Same thing with exes. Like I won't say that, but so yeah, it's just it's really huge. No, it's a really really huge important thing. I think more in my life than probably the average person. So I love comedy shows. I've yeah. So I'll just end it there. Can I, as a Christian, what does that look like? Are you still able to, like, can I only go to like Christian comedians or comedians who keep it relatively clean, which would be hardly any at all?
Well, I mean, the question before the question, I think, is how do you go about making decisions as a Christian, and like what's included in that process? So, naturally, there are passages that we could look at. We could look at like an Ephesians 5 passage when it's describing like coarse joking. It's inappropriate among God's people, right? Instead, it's Thanksgiving is the priority. So like that's the scripture. If you're going, oh, like what's a passage I kind of think about? There's passages about, you go to Colossians chapter 3.
So sorry to interrupt you. So you said amongst the Christians. So if I'm going back to the last episode where you're saying, well, I can't defend myself because I need to turn the other cheek, but my Christian brother can. Does that mean as long as I'm not making the jokes that I can? Because you said it's not making jokes amongst brothers. Like, that means if he's making the joke, then I'm good. I'm just listening and enjoying myself.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, I think I'll probably unpack all of it, right? As far as like, if you want to look at a passage about language, and you might look at Colossians 3, it talks about filthy language and all that. So if you have passages that are kind of, hey, these are some of the standards, then what scriptures do you think about, or what concepts do you think about when it comes to deciding on what to put around me? This is not then limited to just comedy, but it might be music, but it might be TV shows, movies, it might be what you're reading. So instead of being like whatever inconsistent, it's all right, what's consistent. And so the question is, can somebody be listening to sinful language and not sin? I think the answer to that is yes.
Yes.
Now, the question, as we're talking to different people, let's say somebody's aiming to be better with their language, or to be better with more appropriate, jokes, then my direction and guidance is going to be different based on who I'm talking to.
Oh, that's totally me.
So if we use an analogy, then or a comparison, if we said, am I going to tell every person to not drink a beer at home with their dinner? And the answer to that is no. It's like, will I tell somebody, hey, like, who struggles with alcoholism and that alcohol addiction? Yeah, probably not a good look for you. Not a good look, but it's probably not a good path for you because you struggle with the addiction. So you have a unique prescription for someone based on where they're at, which is, yeah, you got an alcohol problem. That beer, probably not good for you. That tequila with that, whatever, that margarita with your dinner, probably not a good thing for you. Now, but if you're somebody, or like you're aiming to be holy with your language and it hasn't been, you're aiming to be holy with your joking and it hasn't been, then that's another conversation. So I'll just ask you then, how like when you're assessing like how you're doing in your walk as far as the language you use and the jokes you make, like how are you assessing that? How are you seeing that?
I can't go. No, that's probably. It's really weird. Like when you think of like being a Christian, you're like, oh, don't lust. Oh, don't be violent. Oh, don't like say outlandish, hateful things to people. But you don't really think about like, oh, like don't make really good jokes, or like just like smaller things like that could that the Bible calls you to live by. So that's definitely. I never would have thought like, oh yeah, making jokes would have been like top of my list as far as like struggles with sin, but that's definitely up there.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I've started to really accomplish some of the more serious ones. I say serious because the Bible says sin, all sin is sin, or is equal. But what we would look at as a worldly standard as a higher sin. I think that's definitely probably the next one on my list, which is definitely an improvement. Definitely not where it should be or where it needs to be. So it sounds like if this is not a stumbling block to you in your walk, then that might be something someone can do. But depending on what it is.
Right. And I think it depends on what it is. I think setting with I think I've shifted along the way with my perspective on this is at what point does I always want the people the guys in my circle to know here's the mature perspective, here's maybe the what you could do, because the scripture says everything is permissible, but not everything is beneficial. You can do things that are permissible, and I think at least where I'm trying to be as far as a Christian advisor and a Christian mentor is letting people know you also could go, and then you could also see like how it affects you. You know what I'm saying? Like
you start making more of those.
But again, if by faith you're going, hey, I can't go, then hey, like that's a good standard for you to hold on to for a period of time, and you might revisit it in 3 months and go, or like one of the guys who used to mentor me, he would show up at comedy clubs and do the open mic night and having his comedy set, but he was from a Christian perspective. And he wasn't making Christian jokes there, but he's making. How can he make secular jokes that are still appropriate there, and he's bringing something different, and he's going in to meet people? Now he shifted that completely. There's a concept that people have discussed in the Christian communities, and they say, is this something to be redeemed, rejected, or what's the other R? There's some other R. So do we redeem this? Do we reject this?
Return.
Receive. It's whatever one you keep doing it. I don't know. So what does Google it real quick? Let's see. Redeem.
How have you? What has been your? How has been your? If you struggled at all in this, in this area perspective, or like what kind of entertainment?
Receive. That's what it is.
Receive.
Go ahead.
What kind of entertainment? Comedy, music, what are you intaking? Like, have you struggled in this particular area?
So a couple of things, but before that, I wanted to tell you about one of my friends it's redeem, reject, receive. And so he was like, instead of just reject it, I want to redeem it. And I want to go be on stage, deliver, and I also want to, use it as an opportunity to meet people, connect, reach out, all of that, and build relationships. He also added to the mix, he was challenged, which might be a great challenge for you, which was to put on his own show, to put on his own comedy night, live music. And like, I think the guy told him, if I remember the story right, it was by this weekend, put on a comedy night with live music and food. So it was like he had whatever it was, the 5 days or 6 days to figure it out. Location, food, and not to say he had to pay for it all, but to say like whatever resources he had, whatever people he knew, even if it's at somebody's house, how can he again redeem that to be able to add that value? So sometimes we throw out the whole thing like, oh, I can't have any kind of comedy in my life. But if you like comedy so much, the way you were describing it, right, then why wouldn't you be able to redeem it, put on your comedy show, live music, food, or whatever it ends up being, to keep that in your life and to still build people up?
Always coming with the solutions today. Hit the flame button for yourself. I like that, man. I like that because it's like The other one's kind of like surrendering, whereas the other one is like, hey, let me go after this weakness, make it a strength, and, and then use it as a way to please God. And like it's like going head on to something and be like, nah, I'm gonna take this on versus just like surrendering. Like, so that was powerful.
Yeah. Come on.
Still in the show today.
That's-
And you, what about any struggles on this particular department for you? Anything that you really wanted to take in or wanted to watch, wanted to listen to, it was a struggle to not anymore?
Yeah. I mean,
You don't seem like a big intake and entertainment
yeah, like
person.
I wouldn't say at this point, again, like 19 years in, I'm not going like, oh man, like I'm cursing now or something. Like that's not really like my thing. Like there's no temptation. There's no like, oh no, I messed up today. Like it's like virtually never, right? Like so it won't be so if we're talking about making a decision. So I think if you're looking at the trajectory of maturity, I think somewhere it starts. You go, okay, something sinful. Let me not do that. Okay, now it's something make me kind of wire my mind to lead into sin. And maybe I won't do that. But eventually you go, all right, how can I pull things into my life that are building me up, that are building others up, that are so doing more of that stuff. But I think but so when it comes to movies and shows, then it's like, all right, so sometimes I'll go through seasons where I'm like, okay, let me do more like this super clean stuff, and then I'll go, let me, okay, I think seeing stuff with PG-13, rated R, mass like killings or gory stuff or inappropriate scenes, I'll be able to look away or whatever it is, like so. Um, but I think I think the word is oscillate. Is that that's the fancy word? Is that kind of changed along the way where I've tried things out, and I think that's something that's actually really helped me from a therapy standpoint. When I've been in therapy, my personality could be like all in, all out, never again, always, or whatever, like 100%. But even what I've shared with you along the way is things don't have to be as permanent as I make them seem. So if right now rated R movies are like messing with me and they're putting thoughts in my head I just really don't want to be there, then I could be off of rated R movies. And then later on I could try and see is this helpful? Like it's permissible, but is it beneficial?
Mm.
And so you're kind of gauging with that. But I think a great accountability, great connection with other brothers has helped a whole lot because it helps me just work through. Let's say I do watch the movie and there's a sexual scene and I turn away, but I saw enough for that to kind of be on my mind or whatever. And I know that's really affected me. But I got the people in the community to be able to, hey, I saw this, want to make sure I just have that in the light so people know about it. So I think I haven't been the kind of Christian who's going, hey, I'm never watching a rated R movie again, or I'm never watching a PG-13 movie again, or even I never watching. And nowadays, you can look at the rating to see what kind of stuff is in the movie. So sometimes, again, I've been more vigilant with that, like checking what kind of stuff is in this movie. Sometimes I haven't. So I think I've been I've been through phases where it's like all or nothing, but I've also been phases where I'll just try something out, and then if it doesn't work, then revisit.
I like this. It's like try out. Like you're trying out is basically what kind of effect does this have on me uniquely, instead of just block everything and be real strict on standards. Like, hey, is this causing me to sin? Okay, if it's not, then maybe it's permissible.
Yeah.
But if it is even tempting me, like, hey, let's probably get rid of it.
I am always curious about because I meet so few people who. This is like kind of interesting. Is I meet very few people who like cold turkey everything. You know what I'm saying? Like even like from the Christian's perspective.
Oh wow. Okay.
Like so, I always wonder like, are those people out there? Like, are there people out there who are just like not engaging in culture at all? Like, again, who are not. Amish. Right. And I've read some great things about them. I think my respect for them has certainly grown. But beyond them, I guess, for like a better phrase, are there regular people out there, like regular Christians who are like
not regular,
cold turkey? You know what I'm saying? Or like, and I dare say this, even like, are there regular or even relevant people who or having like this unique impact that I'm like, okay, yeah, they're doing it in a way, and I just don't know.
I've done that with certain things. In a worldly sense, I remember when mumble rap started coming out, and I was really not a fan of like any American music. Then I started getting into like Latin dancing. Like literally, the only thing I listened to was like salsa, bachata,
Yeah,
and like maybe some other type of Latin American music. Um, but then even like in a godly perspective, like, oh, I'm really trying to cleanse my mind, stay clear. Like, if it's not Lecrae, Triple E, KB, like if it's not Christian artists, I'm not listening to it. Like because
yeah,
that's just the vibe that I was on at the moment. Um, but yeah, there are people that do that like long term, and like I feel like their kids are not fans. They have kids. Like
right.
completely just keep because you've already had that experience and see how it's negatively affected your life at some point. Like I've heard things. I'm sure every kid's different, but I've heard phrases of like, you're so strict with your kid and you keep them away from everything. Well, then they're gonna be worse for a certain time period.
Yeah.
That may never come back or may do after they see what happens. But do you think that negatively would affect childhood? Like if you were just like cold turkey with it, like, hey, you're not doing absolutely anything worldly, anything sinful, like, kind of how you were saying, and like expecting your kid to do the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like, and even my wife has her own journey with her parents, and her parents super strict, and they really didn't have people ever spend the night, which is like a crazy thought for me. I always had people like spending the night
Yeah,
at
me
the
too.
house, or me spending the night at other friends' houses. But so my wife went through that, and I think she has elements of gratitude and also elements of like questioning, like, was that helpful? Like, did that really help me as much as I thought it would, as far as being super super strict? Not because I don't think necessarily a big Christian influence, but they just kind of had their own preferences. But I say that is it is. I used the word relevant earlier, and I was like, and maybe the better word is maybe respect, admiration, and connection. And when I say connection, sometimes we say the word, we'll say the word cool. Are they cool? Like, you know what I'm saying? Are they down to earth, or are they odd and weird and strange? And,
Mm,
this person doesn't maybe connect well because of, they mean overly sheltered.
yeah.
Right. So I don't know. I mean, that's even as we do some of this stuff, I'm like, and I was just scrolling through some of like, Twitter, and I was like, is this helpful? You know what I'm saying? Like, is it helpful to like be exposed to
Oh, like
people?
looking for topics to talk about here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And or even if I'm just again scrolling just because, like, being exposed to people's thoughts, like how many people's thoughts is best? Is it best for me to be exposed to?
Especially on the internet,
Yeah,
they're always so negative.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, all right. Well, let's get into the next one. Really curious to get your take on this. So the next day is cultural appropriation. Should someone get mad for participating in someone else's culture if it's in a non-offensive way, even maybe even in an appreciating way?
Yeah. So, I almost want to look up the definition.
Yeah, if you want to.
All right, let's look. How about we read 5 of them?
5 definitions.
I mean, I feel like we'll type it in, and then we might get a few.
I actually was really frustrated at work and got into an argument at work about this. This is the stupidest thing you could do. Like, oh yeah, let's talk about politics, basically. Like at my job. And I
So,
was just really frustrated. So I like was kind of aggressive in my argument.
all right. So, definition number 1 is the unacknowledged or inappropriate adoption of the customs, practices, ideas, etc., of one people or society by members of another, and typically more dominant people or society. All right, another one is cultural appropriation happens when members of a majority group adopt cultural elements of a minority group in an exploitive, disrespectful.
Right. Disrespectful.
It says another word in there that I had to pull up. Oh, is it buried in there now?
That's kind of weird. If I think of the words cultural and then appropriation, that doesn't make me think disrespect. It makes me think you're taking on the culture, like as part of who you are, or just trying it out for at a time period. Why? What are you laughing?
Because you know how have you seen the phrase "for the culture" trending? Like
I've heard of it.
okay. Okay.
What would explain why people say it?
Uh, well, it's like I might have to say this for a more refined answer, but maybe we'll look that up too.
The Urban Dictionary.
Urban Dictionary for the culture meaning. For the culture means doing something because of an additional perceived value of doing that thing. Or for the culture for short refers to when a person or group of people do something that they usually wouldn't do just because the thing they're doing is it fell off. We're all over the place right now. Okay.
So is this the first time you've heard of cultural appropriation? Me bringing it up to you?
No, I've heard of it, but
Oh,
I feel like
we need context.
Context is helpful. Even I when I hear you bring up the topic, part of me, again, I don't even know your stance on it, but sometimes I sense that I might be in the exact same place as you.
Okay.
So I wonder if there's any additional nuance to the conversation and if I get that from a definition. So, like, okay, so then talk about your understanding of even without the definitions.
Sure.
And talk about, maybe even talk about the situation at work or what you've experienced with it.
So I feel like the people's argument
As a white male.
I have a extremely funny what is the word I want to use? Test that I want to do. I'll talk about it later. So from the argument that I've heard of other people is that like, hey, even if you're doing something and it's not negative, it's not in disrespect towards them. It's like, hey, I'm even like kind of honoring them, whatever the case may be. Like it's still offensive and you can't do it. And like, this doesn't make any sense, right? So if I wanted to dress as a Native American for Halloween or indigenous person, I guess is the proper term that somebody told me. So like if for Halloween, like that would be cultural appropriation and disrespectful. And I'm like what if I'm wearing the native, like indigenous people, Native American, whatever you want to call it. And I was like, oh, I've studied the tribe. Like I really respect their tribe. Like when normally when you wear something or you use something to like represent something, like it's because you honor them, you know, you respect a part of what they do or who they are. And so like that makes no sense to me. Like I understand obviously if you're joking around about someone's culture and like and like destroying it like with like jokes and just outright being, you know, disrespectful. Like that makes complete sense to me. But the argument for me on my side is like I don't understand if like again the immediate example I can think of is, you know, dressing up like Native American on Halloween.
Right.
Like and unless I'm jumping around, you know, and acting like a clown as an Indian or whatever, like or my opinion of one or whatever, like that makes sense how that's disrespectful. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But if I was like, you know, on Halloween you'd have fun, like I'm acting like a warrior or like I don't know, doing like, you know, like I guess something that would be conceived as strength or something about their culture, like, you know, like to me, I don't see where the moral wrong is in that sense.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
It is so like I have heard like with one of the somebody said something about the Kardashians had wore like braids and that was considered
crazy,
like cornrows. So I mean I had braids before, but is me being in the minority culture mean that I can, or that means no, like there's a different culture so I can't?
In all seriousness, I think there would be people that would argue because I've heard this like where like they'll say someone who's like actually Mexican but has white features, you know, like Spanish features, like white hair, blonde hair, white skin, and like you're really really fair skinned. So even though you're Mexican, your last name is Guajardo or whatever, because your skin is so fair. Like, and I'm not saying this is everybody, but I've heard arguments like this, like, oh, you'd be considered white because you're white skinned, like, so you don't face any of the oppression that someone of a darker skin would face.
Yeah.
That's arguments I've heard.
Right. So I have a shirt from Africa.
Right.
My friend went to Africa.
That's another example. Yeah.
Yeah. He bought me a shirt from Africa, and
he's from Africa.
No, he's Chinese.
Did he visit Africa and brought you one back?
And his wife is South American, South African.
What does that have to do with Africa?
Shout out Dr. Jesse Chow. I officiated their wedding as well.
Oh, that's awesome.
So anyway, he brought me back the shirt. So he was coming to town. So I'm like, okay, I'm wearing the shirt, right? Like I'm wearing the shirt he bought me when he went to South Africa.
Yeah.
And then so I'm just, nobody said anything to me except for one of the guys. I'm like, hey, like, is this in I can even go put it on right now if you wanted me to, and I could bring it out.
What is it like? I think it was the dashiki or the.
No, I mean it's like a linen looking shirt, and it has like I can literally put it on and come out right now.
No, I don't want you to culture appropriate in front of tens of people that are watching this.
The 2s and 3s of people. The dozens of views.
So what did he say? Did he tell you not to wear it because of the fear of what other people would say?
So sometimes, you know how guys are when you start talking about something and you're joking, and then sometimes you never get to the actual resolution, and there's someone's joking involved.
Because you keep making it worse and worse, the joke. Like.
Right. It's like, so all I had to say is I still, in sometimes people call this privilege. It's like, I don't understand the struggle. Like, it's a struggle for me to wear this shirt from Africa. Like, there's something's there. Am I missing something? Again, to your point about honoring.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm trying to, is there situations where you feel like it would definitely? You mentioned jumping around as an Indian, which that makes sense. Like, don't mock them, right? Like,
right,
or something that's borderline like mockery.
Mm-hmm. But I feel like there's only certain cultures. Like, okay, if I were dressed up like if let's say a black person, Mexican person, someone who's not white, dressed up as a Viking, nobody cares. Let's be real. Like, nobody's gonna care. Even if you act like a clown as a Viking, like you're jumping around and just completely being disrespectful, nobody's gonna care.
Yeah.
Right. And then I mean I don't know, to use other examples that are like not white, but I feel like I've seen costumes of other cultures that were not of white descent, and like it just seems like it's very specific to like Native Americans or definitely blackface, which usually when I've seen blackface, it's been it has been disrespectful. Like they're being over the top, just being too jokeful with it, but yeah, like it does seem like it's set to certain, like I think I've seen it like Mexico, like the native warriors and stuff like that. Like somebody they got mad in America. Somebody did a test. So in America was like, hey, do you think this is cultural appropriation? Should I wear this? Like, no, that's offensive. Da da da. Then he went to actual Mexico and asked the people there, and like everyone was like, yeah, it's great. Like that's awesome. Like, someone coming over here dressing like how and taking a part of our culture, like that doesn't happen very often. Like they almost like appreciated it,
Yeah.
And they were like, no, I see no issue at all. But it's like I feel like sometimes us as like Americans, we can take offense to things that like actual people and culture don't care about.
It's almost like we're standing there for the hypothetical person who might get offended by this, but you're not the person who's the hypothetical person, but somebody else is the hypothetical person. And so who is that? And how do I monitor, engage, and how do I engage with the person that you think exists out there and ask them, and then they say no, so then the real actual person, not the hypothetical person, doesn't have a problem with this, but you still have a problem with this because you're still thinking about somebody out there who might.
Yeah. It's like we take a poll or something. Whoever gets 50% or higher wins.
But I guess into the definition goes, So it does say a lesser or like less important or whatever overlooked
So that
culture.
would be like,
So the Viking
okay.
wouldn't apply because it's like they were powerful or something. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if they were destroyed or whatever, killed off or whatever it was, but at least where they're displayed on the shows and movies is they seem pretty powerful and cool.
Okay, so that's a good point. So the question would then be, okay, so if I were to dress up as what are they, the Mongols from China? I believe they were the ones who they took over a great deal of land. They were pretty powerful. Like, so if I dressed up as them, that wouldn't be cultural appropriation because they were pretty powerful warrior. Even though that's like, like a Chinese or Asian cultural thing. Like, I mean, the Aztecs owned a lot of the land for a long period of time too. So I was like, I don't know. Me, it just seems ridiculous.
Yeah.
And unless again you're jumping around.
Has
and
anybody ever accused you of cultural appropriation?
Like, I almost want to come to work as a Native American. I'm pretty sure I'd get fired. Like, yeah. So no, I mean, I generally. Well, you saw what I dressed up as Halloween. I was Superman, and I had like Jerry curl hair. Like, I had to have a wig. It was so funny that day that I was trying on wigs because I was like, I can't just be regular Superman because it's really boring. Again, comedy's really big. I wanted to do something that would at least be be somewhat funny. So I'm wearing a, and I don't even know if they had a problem with it because it didn't look like they had a problem with it when I'm looking at their face. But I guess it's because of society and how they're portraying what's offensive and what's not. I had my Superman outfit on, and I tried on an afro, and then like a black couple literally walked around the corner, and then I was like, like I felt, oh. And to be honest, like the afro was really messed up from the packaging. Like it was like really stuffed in there. So it was like dented here, but then it's poofy here. And then it was like, yeah, this is not going to work regardless. And like, I don't really want to like pick it out. And then like, I don't know, have to do what, wet it. And then, like a whole process that I'm sure would be. Cause I was like,
yeah,
I think it was like, I literally bought it the day of Halloween or the day before. So I was like, yeah, I don't have time for this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just thought it was like, I felt weird, which is previous in the past. Like I've had an afro wig, and like nobody cared. Like
yeah,
it was a thing that it's cool. Like you're adding it to your costume, and like it was like literally nobody of any race or any ethnicity or anyone had a problem with it. But it's like we're making things bigger deals than they need to be today. I feel like
there's a thought process that like I could see many people not like bring up the passage, but like the idea is, and it seems like people take it to an extreme, but there's a passage in the book of Romans chapter 14, and what Paul ultimately got into was he talked about what he would be willing to not do in the name of not making somebody else stumble. And I was like, some people say like, hey, I'm not going to coddle to Christians who create these different standards or things that, so an example would be taking your shirt off, right? Like as a man, what category does it in? You know what I'm saying? Like, is it immodest, wrong, sinful? Is it depend culture setting? Does it, is it, is it based on,
I've thought about this before.
People struggling or, is people struggling or whatever? Categories of bikinis for women at the beach, yoga pants, like you get to keep going down the line of situations. You're like, okay, how far are you willing to go? If we look at that text, and we can even pull it up here. I can pull it up on my phone, but
I can tell a story about this if you want.
Go for it.
Okay. So this was wild. Do you, I can't remember his name, but I think he joined like the Black Hebrew Israelite. He was Sarita's ex. What was his name?
Hey, we put people's stuff.
Huh? Was I not supposed to say that on the
No, I guess you can.
I'm sorry.
We're live.
Anyways, I don't know. He was a really, really fun guy to hang out with. Anyways,
his name's Damien.
Damien, there we go. Yes, I really, really liked hanging out with him. And I remember one time we're in the medical center playing volleyball, and me and him started wrestling. Right?
Yeah.
Just messing around with each other, and then I think it was one of the girls that came over to us, or a guy or girl, doesn't matter. But they tapped us on the shoulder and like, hey, can y'all stop? And we're like, what do you mean? Like, why? And he goes, some of the girls had mentioned that y'all were making them struggle. Like shirts on, like shorts, like everything is on. But I guess it's the act of masculinity and aggression. Like, yeah, that was making them lust, which I thought I've never would have thought that before in my life. Like that was something. But yeah, I feel like if you ask enough people, someone will find something wrong with whatever you do. You know what I mean?
That's crazy.
Isn't it?
Right. Let me see if I can find this. I'm in Romans 14.
So we stopped wrestling.
Oh, look at y'all all obedience.
Yes, sir. Well, I was for sure. If somebody tells me that, I know what it is to struggle. So I'm like, gotta tell me twice.
Okay, here's verse 21 of Romans 14. It says, "It is better not to eat meat or drink wine." Those are two examples. Here's the next part. Think about what this means. Or to do anything else that will cause your brother or sister to fall. Like anything
Lord have
else.
mercy.
Anything else?
Lord have mercy. You lost me at vegetarian.
Like, so anyway, I read that passage and I know, again, even a number of Christian YouTubers who are like, oh yeah, like shirt off, like shirt off, fine, whatever, you know, but I just read that passage and I can't necessarily place that you do it, but when I read that passage and I'm trying to go, all right, how do I live this passage out? Well, am I causing somebody to stumble? And I've asked myself, would I be willing to put a shirt on if I had my shirt off if that was causing somebody to someone? I think the answer to that is yeah, like that's fun. Would I be willing to change my costume if somebody, but like, I think to your point about the hypothetical person, like, and not the hypothetical person, like, not that. So, and this is something that maybe is relevant, is like, so let's say the shirt off example, right? So, and women are typically not very visual, like so visual and lust is not typically their thing. So if you know that, and maybe I'll throw out a number, 89 out of 100 won't. Visual is not the thing. I mean, if it was even let's say it was 94 or 95 out of 100, 95%
Won't lust.
Right.
That means I need to work out more. No, I'm just kidding.
Dude, like it is. At what point do you go, oh, I'm thinking about the potential person because 5 out of 100, again, 5%. You know what I'm saying? Like it just seems strange, unless. So it would be like this. So let's say I had my shirt off and you were like, hey, 5% of women, struggle with that. And I'm like, yeah, but like only like whatever, 25 are going to see me. So my numbers, my odds are good. You know what I'm saying? Like again, like dealing with the hypothetical situation is a interesting. What do you think about that?
I feel pretty in this one particular area. I would feel really sensitive to anyone telling me, "Hey, you're making me struggle with lust," because I know what a big issue that is with me.
Yeah.
Right. So when they told us stop wrestling, boom, say less. Like, like that. It's crazy to see some of the things that girls wear at church. Like, Lord have mercy. Like, you could take that easily to the club and find people dressed better more modest than you. But
did you ever hear the song "That Dress Is for the Club"?
Yeah,
you remember
yeah,
that song?
I do remember that one, and I was like, "Amen." Yes, it was. So, but yeah, like I know that struggle, and so like for me, like, hey, 5 people, like I'm good with taking that. Like I think I had a photo on Instagram where I was showing my progress. It was shocking to me because I didn't realize how far I come in like a year and a half.
Yeah.
where I'd gained like 20 pounds. And now I feel like I better like go check my Instagram, but I feel like I deleted it just because it was a picture of me flexing and that I mean, it was impressive for me at least. But I feel like it could potentially make someone struggle. But in like, yeah, that's interesting because now we're picking like, oh, for me, like I would probably like listen to him unless it was like absolutely crazy thing. Like don't ever go train MMA again or something like that. Like, or like, I don't know, like if it was just like something really, really ridiculous, I like, oh, that's caused me to lust. Like, oh, don't say smart things. Okay, let me just say stupid things. Like, no, you know, like,
right.
like I'm really attracted to intelligence. So like, please stop saying, don't use that big word again. You know, like probably not. Like that's on you, sis.
Or I'm really attracted to stupidity. So stop saying stupid things.
Oh wow, that would be pretty bad. Yeah, it's getting really hot here. What do you mean? Like, no, it's not. Never wanted to be so unattractive in my life.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Does that kind of answer the question?
Yeah, I mean, it is one of those interesting things that, yeah, like I really like that illustration you made about talking intelligently. Like again, at what point is this just like, hey, I'm not gonna stop speaking intelligently. Like that's the line. You know what I'm saying? Like, that seems like a decent line. You know, like that's a good line.
Yeah. Stop succeeding so much in life because
Right.
all that success
is making me envious or something.
it's hot here.
Yeah.
All right. Ready for the next one?
Yep.
All right, cool. Oh man, I'm really gonna lean on you on this one. So this is talking about happiness. There is an article that we can pull up that I can read. But first, let's talk about that the Bible never commands us to be happy, to look for happiness, to find happiness. That wasn't in there. So,
So I think there is. So red flags. So red flags go off with me when somebody's teaching from a never or a not in scripture, because like just teach from the passage that you're in. So first of all, so for somebody to say what the Bible never does, that person almost has to be aware of the 1,189 chapters of the Bible simultaneously and know that that's not in there, and a derivative is not in there, right? So there would be for happiness, it might be a study on happiness, joy, might be a study on rejoicing, a study on celebrating, a study on kind of all these things simultaneously. And you're like, okay, I studied every synonymous phrase and maybe even kind of connected phrase to happiness, and I still don't find it. Okay, then somebody gets to that point in the argument, and I'm like, okay, cool. Like you really did, like you can definitively say, but even then I would go, just say something like, you didn't find it from a pretty thorough study from happiness. So red flags when somebody teaches like this passage does not say this. I'm like, don't say it does not say. Just say what it says and let the text say what it says. So anyway, so there's a part of it of I think a thought process that helps people to think through text in Bible and in scripture. So anyway, so there's that perspective.
So I'm gonna basically say what the video says. Nowhere in the scripture does it teach that you are to search and pursue happiness. You find happiness as you do your duty. You find happiness as you lead a discipled life before God. You'll have periods of happiness, but God nowhere promises happiness to be a goal in life. It's not a goal. Our goal is to obey God. Our goal is to do the will of God. Be a disciple of the Lord Jesus Christ. I think we get
Yeah. No, I think I agree with where it's going. Like almost like the happiness is a better byproduct than any solution. So like that, the idea though of
which I think is correct from a worldly perspective as well.
So here's where my perspective has changed in some of this. So because I'm in the self help world, I often think about, hey, what are the self help people pushing like in life, in happiness, in thoughts, and I'm like, all right, so then do I find those things sound in the scripture? So example, so the text you can go study out Deuteronomy chapter 24, and for the Jews, they would spend the first year they wouldn't be sending off the husband to war. He was supposed to stay home, not have any extra responsibilities laid on him, because he's supposed to spend that year bringing happiness to his wife, which is kind of like different than actually the self help world. Self help world is what we say. We say things like this. We say, you shouldn't get your happiness from your significant other, right? Or
Yeah.
so we say, almost we say you should get it from yourself. I make myself happy. It's not that, but like again, go back to the text. The text says the husband was to spend the first year of the marriage bringing happiness, learning to bring happiness to his wife. And again, I would even go, yeah, it's not the other way, even in that text. Again, mind you, what I just said, I just broke the rule. I just told you, don't teach from not this, teach from what it is. The text does for sure say the husband was to spend the first year bringing happiness to his wife. So I think that's relevant in the conversation. Like,
What if he just bought a dog and named it Happiness? That's good.
now, again, a connected concept would be potentially rejoicing. Like, so we have a passage in 1 Thessalonians 5 that teaches to rejoice always. And then another one says in Philippians chapter 4 says, rejoice in the Lord always. So like that rejoice or that joy that some people would switch out with happiness. Like I get happiness inside of God. We might even think about a Psalm 37. Is delight in the Lord. It's where people talk about, and He'll give you the desires of your heart. Now, a couple of verses later, talk about being patient. So like it's like, but that delight in the Lord, that rejoicing in the Lord, that being joyful always, and with the other concepts that are also connected with Scripture is happiness being brought from husband to wife. Also,
Those do sound like commands, though, not, hey, this is the goal for you.
right. So the idea is, I think the initial concept we were discussing was the Bible never commands us to pursue happiness. And I was like, sure, I think I agree with that concept. Yet there's stuff that's very connected to it as far as like a state of, so if somebody said, hey, it's more of like you choose it as opposed to pursue it. So I would say for me, I choose to rejoice in the Lord. I choose to bring happiness to my wife. I choose to be joyful always. I choose these things. So, but if somebody else said, hey, that's kind of pursuing, I'm like, I'm actually okay with that. But what actually is it? What is it? What are we actually saying? Like to rejoice in the Lord, to celebrate in the Lord, to have a good time with my relationship with God, with who God is, with how God sees me. All these things I would say, these are rejoicing in the Lord, being continued. So I think there's a happiness kind of flow through that. So not just a state of I'm smiling and laughing. So it's not that. It's not, or just not chasing the emotional high I got on whatever the day I was married. It's not chasing emotional highs. I think that's accurate. Yeah, it's not. We're not chasing emotional highs. But there are components of, I think, synonymous phrases that are with happiness that are connected to, I think, commands, like, as you mentioned, that are related. But what I was getting to with the bring to happiness is it would be against self-help world, which I'm cool with siding with the Bible when it comes to self-help world. I'm side with the Scripture. Husband is called to bring happiness to his wife, learning that first year to do it.
In the Old Testament, we're in the New.
Why do you talk like that?
So she makes my first year.
But again, interestingly too, in the Proverbs, go study this one out. Proverbs chapter 5 says to rejoice in the bosom of your wife, and in the wife of your youth, even like it, it's like, so she's who you married when you were young, like to stay, to stay there, to rejoice in her. So I think that's where it's an interesting concept. If you think about Deuteronomy 24, bring happiness to your wife, think about Proverbs chapter 5, rejoicing in your wife's body, right? Is what this text is telling us.
Somebody's watching this right now saying, "Amen." Sorry, was that distracting?
Yeah, no. But anyway, so those are some texts that come to mind to mind when it comes to happiness. I think Ecclesiastes is also a great book to study out happiness because he really has the spirit of contentment, like eating and drinking and be happy. Boom, that's it. And then he goes on to talk about, okay, be satisfied in your work. Boom. But then at the end, he's talking about the whole altogether doing is living out God's word is the end goal. So anyway, what do you think? I dropped a lot on you.
I feel like you're bringing side points because you're kind of like agreeing, but then like also disagreeing at the same time. So essentially, I was like, oh yeah, I kind of agree with the point that they're trying to make, but there are commandments that kind of lead to you being happy. I think it's more of like, I think it's like pursuing it, I guess, is the words that they decided to use. It's like, hey, like rejoice in, this is the only one I remember. Yeah, for no doubt. Like, oh, rejoice in your wife's bosom, right? Like that's the one I remember you saying. Like to me, like again, that sounds like a command. It doesn't sound like, oh, like I'm pursuing what is going to make me the most happiest 100% in life, and I'm gonna go find that. I think the point I was trying to make is more like, hey, that's again, like kind of what you said. Like it's a byproduct of you following God. Those things will happen, and here are some commandments that, in following these is going to make your life happier,
right,
and better.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. It's a great point, and that's where I'm with you in the sense that what I see on TV, movies, shows, even from people, is they elevate happiness as a reason to do things against their character and even against a lifestyle that God would endorse. They go,
I was thinking that.
If it makes me happy, like, yeah, cheat on your wife. It makes me happy, abandon those kids. And not abandon, maybe that's extreme. But it is that idea where society goes is how many decisions that are harmful, problematic, counter to God's vision for what life is supposed to be filled with in the name of happiness. I see that happen all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, it is that new God. It is maybe not even new. I mean, it is a God of sorts where people obey that and justify so many behaviors in the name of happiness.
Yeah. And it makes me think too that we have a culture of short-term happiness. That's almost kind of what it seems like. If you're kind of following the scriptures and what God says, and and how do you live your life, I feel like you'll be very happy, very content, but you won't have these extreme highs like, oh, being happy is me going to the bar, or pursuing this girl that's clearly not for you because you're super attracted to her, or insert whatever desire that you have that you think will make you happy in that moment. And I feel like oftentimes, a lot of times we do go for these short-term happiness highs that give those endorphins. But in the long term, like you following God's plan and what he in the commandment that He's called you to do, like long term, you're gonna be more content, which in my opinion is real. Is what happiness actually is, what people call happiness, but what they're really looking for is to be content. Oftentimes what we think is going to make us happy, you have this 5-minute rush of excitement that you accomplished it. And now, and the body's main goal, okay, hey, what's next? Like you're already thinking of the next goal and you just barely achieved, what you've been trying to achieve for potentially years.
Yeah.
And now you're already unsatisfied looking for the next one, right?
That's right.
So happiness to me is really content. Some people just don't know that's really what they're looking for. They still think it's like these goals or whatever XYZ that they want is going to make them happy. So
Fire take. I love it, man. I'll respond to that with. So I think there's, yeah, character based. There's contentment connected to it. I think I really like that concept of contentment connected with a few other, um, I would call partners of happiness. So if somebody was like, hey, like I want to be happy in life, what do I do? You know what I'm saying? Like, where do you start? Where do you go? Like, how would you navigate that process? Okay, so, and what are some prerequisites that are important for you to have to optimize your happiness in this life? So I would certainly put contentment as one of those. And if we define that simply as to being satisfied with what you have, who's around you. So yeah, with your relationships, with your possessions, with your abilities,
Mm.
with your conditions and circumstances, even if they're horrible conditions and circumstances, like the idea of to find contentment, to be satisfied as much as you can there, and it gives you the best opportunity to pursue more. And it isn't in it. I always like to delineate contentment versus complacency. Complacency is a reflection of being a coward who doesn't want to live into your full potential. Contentment, I believe, is a courageous stance against materialism
Wow.
or insufficiency. I don't have enough relationships. I don't have possessions. I don't have enough whatever circumstance, situation, resources, whatever it is here. So I can reject complacency while pursuing contentment. So then so anyway, contentment will be one of the concepts that are connected to happiness. The second thing I would say is peace. So I would say, well, how do you pursue peace? Again, I would do a Bible study on that, and I would connect gratitude, knowing what
Mm.
you want, requests before God. Um, then we could even do like a drop down on gratitude on what are things scripturally to be grateful for. If you quick some are possessions, people, powers, it's your basic abilities, your providence, how God's delivered you, the purity around you, that's the God's love, His truth, His goodness, His holiness. Um, and one more I'm spacing on right now, but we'll just stick with five. But those I would say confidence, which is which would be this idea of understanding who you are before God. And it gives you that ability to trust who you are, how you are, your identity, your ability. So I would say those three for sure would be prerequisites that I would be guiding somebody to understand more of so
Mhm.
they get more of the happiness on the other side. Because I rarely, I don't, maybe say never, I never see happy people who lack peace. I never see happy people who lack contentment. I never see happy people who lack confidence. Those are typical um, twin partners when it comes to happiness.
I think you literally touched on the next point I was going to make, which was how much do you think people who are not happy or not content is due to seeing the lack of value that they have or that they see themselves as of not having?
Yeah.
Reword that again. So, how much is people who are not content with themselves or not happy is due to the fact that they don't see the value that they have or think that they lack value as a person or think that they lack some type of materialistic value, relationship value that makes them less than. Do you think that's relevant and does that play a part in today's society?
Yeah, no, I think it is. I think where people are looking for their identity. So here's where I do kind of connect this concept to what we were discussing with people. And I remember my wife and I were able to lead this singles ministry in our church for a significant period of time, and or significant as relevant, but a couple of years. We were small group leaders as well in that ministry. So being able to work with single professionals to talk to them what they're thinking, what they're wanting, what's their dreams, what are their disappointments, and walking through all of that with them. And I found myself, if even you could go deep, dig into the initial curse in the garden when the woman's curse, it's at least some of the versions we'll talk about, like your desire will be for your husband and he will rule over you, which is like this potential curse and like how it translates all the way till today, and how is it relevant. So if we were to break some of that down and talk about, is that relevant where there's so much of a desire for a man on the woman's side, um, to have husband, to have that security, to have that um, lifelong partner? Again, um, I think that there is validity in there to tie back to what you're saying about identity is if the scripture says the husband brings wife to happiness, what if somebody never gets married? Then like what is that? You know what I'm saying? Like what does that mean for their happiness? And to bring it back to identity, it's I think there's so much we can get independent of marriage, independent of a husband bringing that happiness to their wife, which would be kind of back to identity, confidence, peace, and contentment. I think are very relevant when it comes to, hey, I don't have a husband, therefore maybe I don't have kids. Which again, people and especially women find a lot of value in who they are as a wife and who they are as mother, but some don't have those roles. And I think what I would be encouraging them around is those other 4 or 5 concepts: peace, contentment, gratitude, your confidence, and your identity. But yeah, identity huge player in the game.
Something I was gonna say earlier, and you brought it up again. But initially, when you said it was the man's duty for the first year of the marriage to bring his wife happiness, to make his wife happy, that I feel like the average person would have been like, oh, like I'm gonna be your slave for a year, or would have felt average man, sorry, would have felt kind of negative about that situation. But for me, it got me excited. It's like, oh, that sounds like it'd be really fun. Now, if it went into year 2, like it might be, I feel like I might, like, I don't know, 2 years, like my whole job is just to bring her happiness. Like, but I'm a very giving person, and I think a lot of guys want to appreciate, and I think that I'm not the only guy that would excite. Hey, for a whole year, my job is, to try to make her happy, right? Guys are providers, supporters, they're leaders, and not just in the physical sense, but in the emotional, spiritual sense. But I feel like in today's like modern dating culture and world, it's like if I spent a year of trying to make a girl happy, like even if she was my girlfriend, I think she'd be unattracted to me after that. After 3 months, 4 or 5 months, you know what I'm saying? I have not found that same. I've not found that same experience in Christian dating, but I've dated one Christian. Who I'm dating right now, so it's not a very high statistic.
Sample size. Sample size is 1.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
But I do think that is kind of weird in a sense. Okay, if I was really trying to make a woman happy, like I was doing the most, without sacrificing my value as far as like presenting her in some kind of way that like she's more like I'm being so self-sacrificial that it's almost showing her like, oh, you're more important than me. Like I value you more important. Like if I'm like skipping my job or not working or putting like obvious things that I need to do before her, like that obviously makes sense. Or like you're showing kind of obsessive, like even that's freaked me out at times. Or girls like overliked me. I'm like, hey, I'm just a regular guy. Like calm down, Yeah. But if you were to even do that in a way that wasn't crossing these obscure lines, I still feel like in today's age, it's like. Nah, like I think they want a little bit more of a chase than that. Like I feel guys purposely are not as loving or as nice or do things as they would honestly like to do for women because I think fear of rejection, fear of being seen as less, or like that would ruin the game that that the girl likes, that's gotten her attracted to me. Like that's. And that I don't know. So that when you said that, like I was like, oh well, that sounds like really desirable, at least for the first year. Like I said,
yeah.
Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I've wondered about it. I've wondered about the timing of it. Like, oh, why a year? I wondered why in the direction husband to wife, why,
Burnout.
and I again, just conjecture theories of why is that. I think it's habit formation, right? It's you have a year to build certain habits. You learn what she likes, what that is for her. So you're building that out. Maybe we'll even look at the culture of the time as far as, yeah, men were esteemed and they had an element of respect that was unquestionable from a society perspective, from even the cultures around them. So the if we're just like whatever sharing theories or ideas of um, why that is, I wonder, is it? I've seen it where the when I initiate love, when I'm doing small things, when I'm doing those things that the reciprocation is just again, it's me leading by being first, by initiating, and then her following and reciprocating that. So, anyway, just theorizing as far as some of that passage and what that means and how it applies, which I think I think we, we would look at that and go, oh, okay, that was the first year you're married. So what do you do with somebody who's married 10 years and they're struggling in their marriage? Well, okay, like maybe it might be. I can see myself saying, spend a year building back habits that show love to your wife. You know what I'm saying? Like something like that. And it might be, again, more micro issues that we got to work through or talk through, pray through. But I think it's worth exploring with them. Like, what are the habits you can build, you could do on an ongoing basis to bring happiness to her.
Yeah. And that kind of makes me think too. After the first year, did we set her up for failure? Like we taught her, hey, the first year of marriage is going to be like this, and then you're like, oh, I got that year out of the way. Like that's not my main priority anymore.
Yeah.
Like I feel like there should be like a scripture on like, hey, like on the 11th month, prepare her for the new the new world, the new marriage, where like that's not your only duty anymore. Like that can be kind of a shock. Like,
Yeah. I think that text is interesting. We can pull it up and read it. But uh, even they call back to rejoicing the wife of your youth. I think about that as a call back to that, celebrating the woman you committed to, and thinking thinking that through in a biblical way, in a way that glorifies God. To me, I think it's a callback. Callback gets to that same.
I'm going to read the article that you sent me, parts of it. So there's a psychologist in Finland, and that's rated the #1 most happiest country in the world. And she wants to talk about 3 things that they never do. So 1, they don't compare ourselves to our neighbors. So I will skip that one. Like basically, don't compare yourself to others, right? We don't overlook the benefits of nature. And the third one I really wanted to touch on was we don't break the community circle of trust. So research shows that higher levels of trust within a country, the happier its citizens are. A lost wallet experiment in 2022 tested the honesty of citizens by dropping 192 wallets in 16 cities around the world. In Helsinki, 11 out of 12 wallets were returned to the owner. Finnish people, I know, right? Finnish people tend to trust each other and value honesty. If you forget your laptop in a library or lost your phone on the train, you can be quite confident you'll get it back. Kids also take often public bus home from school and play outside without supervision. That sounds scary to do that here in America, which is wild if you think about the first world country.
Yeah.
Like we're supposed to be though. Yeah, that's crazy. And then I have another take that a certain individual brought up that I won't mention again because thought it might get a shadow ban. But but he did bring up that in like the Western countries, like we don't know our neighbors. Like I can remember growing up and like barely talking to my neighbors. It's like I just go home and that's it. Like we don't really talk. And then within like in our big cities, like within communities, like there's no real sense of communities. You live your life, I live mine. I don't know you. You're just another number.
Yeah.
To me, I feel like maybe a smaller country in like Finland, that's probably different.
Yeah, I remember when I was living. What grade was I in? First grade and before that, I had a tricycle and I would ride it on the sidewalk. And then my neighbor, I guess he had money or something, but decided that he didn't, to avoid me, I suppose, from riding my tricycle from our sidewalk into his sidewalk. He had his sidewalk removed from the yard, which I was like, right.
That is the pettiest thing I've ever heard in my life. Well,
Now,
not the pettiest, but it's close.
Now, again,
A whole sidewalk removed? Do you know how expensive that is?
right. Now, as an adult, I do think through what might he have been thinking, and I was like, well, when he would be backing up his car, and we're like, again,
Racing
through potentially like him backing up over one of us, then he's like, hey, I'd rather deal with not having a sidewalk as opposed to running over this kid and then having to live with that, right? So that was the one thing I was like, okay, maybe there is something, of value there, but the sidewalk.
You're reaching so hard, dude. He's just a mean man.
But to the point of
I love the positivity
of neighbors or community, and not even having the exact opposite of that. Somebody who would, again, like, how would you even like again request that to be done? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't even know where to go.
That must have been high dollar though.
Google remove sidewalk. There was another point that someone brought up to me, and I used to be friends with a lot of people from South America, still a lot of people from Mexico, in that general area. And they said the biggest culture shock when they come here, and this is like so I'm a pretty curious person, kind of ask the same questions to lots of people, large sample size. But they said the biggest difference difference that they don't like is that in their communities within Venezuela, Colombia, Mexico, like there's a sense of actual community, right? Like the neighbors actually do know each other. Oftentimes they're out barbecuing and together, staying out late till 4 or 5, 6 in the morning, and partying together. They share life together. It's like, man, that sounds so beautiful. Like I wish we had that here in the United States. And I'm like, where did we get that culture from? Like, were we like, hey, don't talk to me. I just had a long day. I'm gonna go home inside and watch Netflix. Like,
yeah.
Like, here's a fake high. Okay, don't get too close on my yard. Like,
yeah. That's a good question. That's a good question as far as what's contributed to the isolation. Certainly, I think TV, internet, games has played a big part of that. I'm curious. Again, I don't have big statistics about it, but I'll pay attention to who's playing basketball outside. As I drive around elementary schools and I see courts, and I'm like, oh, interesting. Nobody's playing. And then nobody's playing, and nobody's playing. And
wow.
As opposed to, but again, like the amount of entertainment we have access to inside, even when and I was growing up playing, we would be at each other's house to play the game together. It would be.
Can Derek come outside and play?
right. It would be the even if we were playing video games, it was like we're playing the same game together. But now, I mean, you can.
There's no 2-player games anymore.
Right. There's no co-op, right?
Yeah.
And instead, it would be a game you play online. Again, so you might have community virtually again, but
it's separate. It's not even in the same room.
Right. So
get it together, PlayStation, Xbox.
Yeah, man.
Well, I think that's it. Do you want to give your outro thoughts this time, since I gave mine twice?
Sure. Let's see.
In a world.
All right. If you want to be happy and you want to be fulfilled in your life, then Focus on that gratitude. Focus on peace. Focus on contentment. Being satisfied with what you have, who you have, how you operate, who God is in your circle, and also understand identity and confidence connected to the mix.
Amen.
And I think that's going to help you out as you move forward with your life.
Preach, brother.